And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. It is now a full-blown standoff, pitching independent power producers firmly against the government over hugely accumulated debt. Now, the Finance Ministry has confirmed to Joy News the IPPs must now accept a haircut on what they are owed or risk not being paid at all. In fact, a fresh dispute has also erupted over the exact amount owed to the IPPs. Now, the power producers had insisted they are owed $2.3 billion and declared they will not accept any form of debt restructuring. Now, listen to the CEO of the Chamber of Independent Power Producers, Apetorgbor.
I think our engagement is not about debt restructuring. It's about a discussion in relation to how government should settle our arrears and what solution do you have for the current invoices going forward, as well as renegotiation of some terms of our power purchase agreement.
So have you agreed to restructure the arrears, the debt that you owed?
We've made our position known emphatically regarding the debt restructuring, that we are not open to that. We are open to a discussing the payment plan of our arrears. When we are talking about debt restructuring, it's a question of what do you want to restructure. We have made our position known that our arrears in questions relates the cost of our services. And also, we indicated that our arrears are actually obligations that we have owed to our stakeholder, particularly the lenders. Again, suggesting that implies that IPPs have some free cash flow over there for which we are pressing them to accept a debt restructure, which is actually not the case. So for debt restructuring, I'm sure to tell you that it's not a position the IPPs will accept.
Well, on PM Express last night, the Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, who has been leading the government negotiations, declared there cannot be any compromise over government determination to restructure the debt. He says the power producers must take a haircut.
That is not the reality on the ground. I mean, maybe you should explain the kind of restructuring. They said no. Because as I speak to you, there have been proposals for restructuring.
From government to them?
No, presented also by IPPs. What we offered to them is different from what they offered to us. They actually sent us a counter offer, So if they don't agree to our offer for restructuring, what they have presented to us is also an offer for restructuring. It's just that there is no consensus on what kind of restructuring we need to do. But restructuring takes different forms.
It says what they agree to, what they are prepared to tolerate is a payment plan, but not restructuring in the sense where they will get a haircut.
Oh, so if he's talking about haircut, maybe he should speak for his company. I appreciate that he is the president, the CEO of the chamber. But you know that ECG has contract with individual IPPs. Yeah. And ECG is engaged in discussions with the individual IPPs. So some understanding have been reached. The negotiation is continuing. And so sometimes I get worried when the chamber speaks, for all the IPPs, knowing that the individual IPPs have been having discussions with ECG, that the chamber as an executive may not be privy to. And so as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to divulge what is being negotiated, but I can tell you that some restructuring is going to happen. It may not be the kind of restructuring they want, but until we conclude the negotiation, we are not able to tell what we have restructured.
Broad strokes, are you suggesting, like we've seen in the restructuring that has been done so far, some form of a haircut?
Well, we've made an offer to them to accept the haircut. We've also asked for them to allow us to spread, the debt over some time.
$2.3 million. $2.3 million.
Billion dollar, in fact, which is also, contested because the entire energy sector debt is now up to 2.3, not to talk of IPP. As of the end of last year, the debt that we, were able to calculate was about $1.7 billion. and of which $450 million was for fuel, which is not for IPPs. And you know our fuel suppliers like Sankofa, Nigeria, Jubilee, you know. And so IPP was about 1.1, 1.2. So when did that rise? Within 5 months to $2.3 billion. So that cannot be accepted.
So government disputes that. I thought you did an audit, and that's clear.
No, the audit was up to 2021. We are currently doing the audit. And the audit that is currently happening is revealing that the debt may even be less than, for IPP, less than $1 billion. So when we finalize the audit, the figures will come out. And so it is not good for people to bandy figures around. Just because you have the platform, you mention any figure thinking that you will win the sympathies of people. It's not $2.3 billion. I can tell you for a fact.
The haircuts that you're intending to, I guess, negotiate with the IPPs, how much haircut are you going to get?
Well, I think we made an offer.
What are you proposing?
But, I mean, this is a negotiation between us and the IPPs, and I don't think I should discuss the terms of 10%, the negotiation.
5%?
I don't think it's fair to the 6%. IPPs. I don't think it's fair to the IPPs.
But definitely,
if I start, no. But I don't think it's fair to the IPPs if I start talking about what we offer them.
But why is government imposing a haircut on power already consumed? That's a question I put to the Minister of State at the Finance Ministry.
Oh, but how about the DDEP? You're saying that the people...
Well, the same argument came out.
The people who had the bonds... We've done that to you. We've done that to myself. I don't know about Atu if he had the bonds. And Ghanaians accepted this challenge. They sacrificed so much, and we thank them for that sacrifice. We are doing the same thing to our external, creditors. So how about IPPs? What makes IPP so unique that, we cannot apply the principle to them?
In our case,
because
you told
everybody that we have applied the principle to has done something for us. Some have bought our bonds. Some have provided services. Some have given us loans to undertake government projects. So the principle is the principle. And we are very happy that a lot have responded positively, particularly the people of Ghana.
Okay, the people of Ghana.
And I expect IPPs to also respond positively.
Okay. And if they don't, in our case, you told us if we don't accept it, you won't be able to pay. In the IPP's case?
It's the same.
Okay.
It's the same. Where's the money? We have to raise the money together. And they have to understand that we have to raise the money to be able to pay them.
Well, thankfully, the CEO of the Chamber of IPPs just joined me on the telephone line right now. He is Apetorgbor. Thank you very much, Alepin, for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you very much, Ivan.
You heard the Minister of State at the Finance Ministry. He asked a question I want to put to you. He says, what makes IPP so unique that you should not take a haircut like everyone else?
Thank you very much. It shakes or surprises me when he made that comment. This is somewhat business capital. We are not lenders to government. We are talking about cost of service that we have rendered. I will simply describe the comment as that of an interference from a politician in a private business. Our business of power generation is a private investment funded by private equity and debt, and not a publicly funded. So you cannot make such a comment. Why should a private man pay for somebody's recklessness in expenditure? And we have stated the reason for which we cannot accept that offer of debt restructuring. We made mention of what we are owed to our lenders. We do not have that kind of luxury to go and negotiate with our financiers what challenges the investment economy is going through. No, it doesn't work like that with us. Why will you fail to understand this simple analogy? So I'm disappointed by that comment anyway.
But he's clear, though, that you either accept the haircut or you risk not being paid at all. In fact, he says there is simply no money.
Well, all that I can say is that I wish him well in that posture, in that position. You know, our business of power generation is bonded by fairly negotiated risk-sharing document called Power Purchase Agreement. Fairly negotiated, and it is about risk-sharing. Everybody has taken cover of the risk involved in the business. This afternoon, somebody just shared a report with me from the Auditor General that ECG is unable to account for some monies that they have collected. Look at the arrears. ECG has over 7 million customers and unable to account for only 3 million. Meaning about 4 million are using electricity for free. Why won't you be concerned about dealing with this issue internally before coming out of a proposal in the negotiating table? Let's be fair to ourselves. We must take ECG as a case study and get it to work. And when it works, the whole sector, the whole value chain will work.
Mr. Ametorgbor, you've heard the Minister of State, and from what I understand, he's the man who's leading the negotiations with you and with the IPPs, to be more specific. He's indicated to you, government has now told you in very plain terms what their position is on this matter. What's yours? You say no restructuring, but government says, well, I don't have the money to pay what you're asking for, so accept a restructuring. What's your alternative beyond simply you saying you won't accept it?
You know, I mentioned yesterday that what we are opening, we want to sit down with you to listen to you how you intend to pay the arrears to us.
Well, he's told you.
Or it's about negotiation.
Well, he's told you already that he's actually already engaging some of your members. He says some of your members are actually making counter offers, bordering on restructuring already, and that you may not know because they are engaging individually at that level.
Well, I indicated that we share real-time information among ourselves, but the underlying factor is that we are not accepting a restructure of our arrears or haircut on our arrears, as their obligations already owed.
You should stay with me because there's a subject around how much government owes you, which is also now a subject of controversy tonight, as you had the Minister of State articulate in that interview with me on PM Express. I want to bring in the ranking on the Mines and Energy Committee in Parliament. He's also a member on the Finance Committee, John Jinapo. Mr. Jinapo, thanks for your time here on Top Story. You had the Minister of State at the Finance Ministry. Government is very clear on this matter. As far as the arrears are concerned, the IPPs must accept a haircut. You've had the IPP say that's not something they can tolerate, but government is in a place where they simply cannot afford to pay all what they owe. And a haircut is what they're proposing. And then the view there is everybody else is accepting a haircut. Individuals did accept a haircut. Banks did accept a haircut. Why not the IPPs?
First of all, it's very unfortunate that trust, cooperation, and confidence between government and these IPPs have broken down. In this sense, a very, very worrying signal internationally. What this does is that would-be investors and potential investors would view government, for that matter Ghana, as a hostile investment destination. What the Finance Ministry has done is simply to put a gun to the head of the IPP and say, take it or pack and leave. Because if they do not take it, it means that they won't pay them. And if they do not pay them, it means that their financiers will begin to call on some of the guarantees. And once they begin to call on the guarantees, it means that the whole contractual framework is broken down. This is very, very alarming. This is worrying. And this has the potential of destabilizing the entire power system in Ghana. I thought that government would have shown good faith. First of all, the IPPs have not advanced bonds in the sense of buying government bonds. The IPPs are just as contractors in Ghana who have provided services. My worry is that from the IPPs, government is likely then to extend it to other contractors who have provided services for the state. Because there's no difference between those who have provided services like goods and services and these IPPs. And I thought that government would have demonstrated some good faith, exercised some level of maturity and some level of restraint I was very, very disappointed hearing what the minister stated on your program.
But he's just articulating the reality. The money is simply not there.
That's what I'm saying, that the minister is virtually putting a gun on the head of the IPP and telling them that accept it or pack up. And I will not be surprised if in the coming days some of the guarantees are called upon, which further exacerbates this country's reputation. We've suffered enough. But more importantly, that the minister is confirming that the figures they've been putting out all this while are inaccurate. In fact, if you go to the budget, and I'm just referring to the main budget, not the speech, because the speech is just an average version. Page 23, paragraph 120. Mr. Speaker, government has also started constructive engagement with individual IPPs to restructure their arrears amounting to 1.7 billion after the end of May 2023. Yesterday, the minister told you that even that figure, they can't stand by it. And that is far less than this figure. So the very budget you present to Parliament, you yourself, you are quoting 1.7 billion. And then you go and sit on an important platform such as yours and say that even those figures, you cannot vouch for them. And that you are going to do a certain audit. They did not even say estimated. They were categorical. And all this while they kept accusing all of us that they are paying so much. So how did they come by those payments and how did they validate those amounts before paying? I'm very, very worried. It does appear that this government is taking a knee-jerk approach, a firefighting approach, rather than looking at it from a comprehensive point of view. They set up the energy sector recovery program. It's elapsed, and yet nothing can be shown for that. They can't even tell us the contracts they renegotiated. This is most unfortunate, and I'm really, really worried as a sector player.
On the subject of how much exactly they owe the IPPs, let me bring in Alec Blim. Alec Blim, the Minister of State at the Finance Ministry is clear that it is definitely not 2.3 billion as you articulated yesterday in my interview with you, and that it is $1.1 billion, and that even that, the audit that they're currently undertaking is revealing that it could be less.
Evans, I would appreciate if you could provide clarifications on his position. Let me say that we do not do political accounting or color our books to please anyone. We are experts in our business. You know, accounting for power goes beyond the normal addition of receipts of invoice and the payments that you have made. During our engagement with the IMF told us sadly that government of Ghana is unable to produce a single figure of total indebtedness to the sector. And we took time to make revelations on how the figures look like to IMF. And IMF is fully aware, backed by information, valid information. You know, when you take a typical power purchase agreement, you know you have what you submit to your off-taker on monthly basis as invoice. Aside that, there are other claims in the PPA that also result in financial liability that you also account for. And we take a typical tariff, you are looking at your energy charge and capital recovery charge. So I do not know what kind of analysis that he did to come out with that kind of position.
But let
me explain this. You can also do a verification from the grid. Check the availability of the power producers. How much are they able to put on the grid daily? How much are they putting on the grid monthly? Then do some analysis, do a rough calculation by multiplying by average tariff and see what figures are involved. We may talk about fuel components that are fuel that are supplied to the IPP. Let me make it clear that the fuel supply agreements are owned by the power producers, not government. If they come out with a proposal to say that, well, now I will take responsibility of the fuel components of your generation, that is fine. But until you settle it, I must recognize those figures in my book as liability I have to pay. And it forms part of the invoices that I give to you.
Yeah, Alec Blim, clarity. 4 months ago when this conversation started, it was stated that you were owed just a little over $1 billion. I remember speaking to the ECG boss and confirming that. Yourself actually did confirm same. How did it become 2.3 billion in 4 months?
I mentioned to you what accounts for. Their position is always different from our position.
But 4 months ago, what they were quoting,
the monthly invoice that we are giving them, and the payments that we have.
The point I'm making is
they have made to us.
4 months ago,
the figures they keep carrying around.
Yeah, but Elikpen, 4 months ago, their position on how much they owe you aligned with yours. When did this change in the last 4 months?
Last 4 months, we are talking about which month specifically? As in March.
I recall very correctly. In March, when I spoke to the ECG boss, he mentioned they owe you just over $1 billion, and you agreed that was the amount.
I don't think so. In March, I think our position was about 1.4 billion US dollars.
Okay, so $1.4 billion. So in March, April, May, June, July, you say now you're in excess of what? You're now currently talking about 2.3 billion. How did that jump to that amount? That's what the minister is questioning.
As at May, even our position is about 1.6. And I said that to check this figure, I would direct you that check the availability, how much power that is generated will inform you about how much money that the IPPs have accrued.
But since March, though, what you're actually stating is government has accumulated $900 million since March. Because if it was 1.4 billion in March to now, just a little over 4 months more, it's now 900 million more. Is that even realistic? That's what government is questioning.
That should depend on the kind of balance that we are working with. I indicated how they do their accounting and report to the public. So when you come to my books, I talk to you about reality. So all the justification they will provide is the figures that I mentioned are in context and require audit, which is never ending.
What are you going to do now, considering what you've heard from the finance ministry?
In regards to which of the case?
Both. I mean, they dispute how much they owe you. Secondly, they insist that you must take a haircut.
That is normal for any debtor to do, to say they are contesting, just to take advantage and they delay payment. But if I cannot get funds to sustain my operation, I think I will not run an empty machine.
So the machine is to shut down?
Definitely.
Do I hear you repeating or returning to your earlier position, which you suspended, where you told the world that if you're not paid by a certain date, you don't have a choice than to shut down the machines?
Yes, I think we had a discussion on that. I said that at the last minute we had some intervention, and we have shown good faith by accepting what was offered, and they have honored it to the extent that we have received an assurance of a second fulfillment. So I think once we have something to work with, we'll continue to work.
But that what you're referring to is remaining current. Your current invoices,
exactly.
Invoices you're submitting. We are now talking about the arrears. That's what government says you have to take a haircut on. I'm saying on that particular bit, what's your position? What would you do?
And that haircut will not happen.
Mr. Junapo,
we can discuss how it can be repeated.
Well, Mr. Junapo, you see a standoff here clearly. Government position is very clear. Their position is also clear on the arrears. Will your committee step in at some point? You did to avert that last threat of a shutdown. Now you're hearing echoes of that returning. What's the plan now?
If Parliament is to step in, we have to step in to even ascertain the veracity of all these figures they are putting out. Government itself comes to present a figure before Parliament. Parliament. Not any house, Parliament. And then less than 24 hours, the Minister of State, under whose watch this budget was presented, says that even the 1.7 they presented is inaccurate, and that it is 1.1. That should be worrying. And even that 1.1, he is not sure. There ought to be some validation. So government doesn't even know how much it owes. If you don't know how much you owe, how do you propose a haircut? A haircut on what amount? To save how much? I mean, this should be worrying. Any ordinary Ghanaian, any concerned Ghanaian ought to be very, very worried at the demonstration of complete incompetence, because at least you are buying the power. The bills come to you, you have to vet them. So since 2017 to date, all these years, you've not verified the invoices that have been submitted to you. And that is only yesterday you realized that the invoices are inaccurate. Something must be wrong somewhere, Evans. I'm very, very worried as a member of parliament. And I think that this even goes beyond parliament. The government that can't produce accurate figures of its indebtedness, wow, we are indeed in real serious trouble.
Mr. Junapo, thank you very much. Apetorgbor as well. I'm grateful. This conversation is one that is continuing. The negotiations are still continuing. You've heard both sides and what their positions are on the matter. We will bring you the very latest as and when we learn more. This is Top Story News Night in a minute.